So let's get started now that we've given everybody an additional minute or two. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Matt with PriceFX, the fast, flexible, and friendly pricing solution, and the global leader in cloud-native price optimization and management SaaS software. Today's presentation, Service Contract Pricing, how to tap into that lucrative stream of recurring revenue, will be delivered by our valued partner, Avragon, who helps businesses achieve a commercial advantage by going through an operational servitization journey. Before we start today, I just wanted to let our attendees know that there are available handouts that highlight today's topic as well as servitization and the presentation in depth, and our partner Avragon that is available on the webpage that you registered. So feel free to grab those for a deeper dive into detail. Any comments or questions throughout today's presentation can be shared in the chat box to your right. Please note the difference between the two chat boxes. The one on the left is more of an open forum for comments that anyone can see, and the one to the right is only visible to Hamad and I during the Q&A session. So feel free to submit in either or, and we'll be sure to respond. So we would like to get things started today by engaging our attendees with a few poll questions. So if you wouldn't mind clicking the poll link in the chat box and answering the few questions to get started. Let's see. So the first question is, if you're able to click the link in the chat box, is do you currently have outcome-based services in your service offering portfolio? Yes, no, or not relevant. And then the second question will be, do you have operational equipment asset as a service contract today? Yes, no, or not relevant. If our attendees could answer those questions, that would be great. I'll give everybody about a minute or two just to answer those, and then we can, share the feedback and go from there. Let's see. Got it. Let's see. Please let me know if the link works for you or if you're unable to access that. Let's see. Here's another link just to make sure it works. If you wouldn't mind clicking that and participating, that would be great. And then we'll give everybody just another minute and go from there. So I'm seeing some yeses, so great. You came to the perfect presentation for today. I'll let people continue to answer that throughout the presentation, and I'd like to pass things over to Hamad to get things started. Hamad, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Matthew. My name is Hamad Hakimian. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Avragon. As Matthew mentioned, we are helping companies with growing their service business, moving toward more outcome-based service modeling, and also servitization as a whole. What I would like to emphasize before we go through the presentation is that the team that we have at Avragon is very heavy from the experience in B2B OEM industry, manufacturing industry. So the presentation of today might look a little bit oriented toward OEM and manufacturing industry, but what we're talking about today, it can be applied, of course, in other spaces like process industry or retail and B2C, of course, with some tweaks into it. So what we're doing at Avragon, or what the whole vision that Avragon is created around it, is servitization. And why we are doing that is because we see a big trend in the business market where customers more and more demand for outcomes, and rather than a willingness to purchase, buy, and acquire equipment, which they might not always monetize the values out of them all the time. Although these equipments can be very of high quality and well engineered, but the customers would like to have more outcomes than before connected to the investment that they do into the equipment. And we are here to help companies to transform their business, moving through this maturity journey, gain more and more commercial advantage by also avoiding the commoditization that happens in the product production and sales as discrete products. So the goal here is to help our clients to sustainably grow their profitability and commercial advantage as a result of this maturity journey. As a confirmation to this trend, I would like to also provide some quotations of different studies that has happened by well-known consulting companies or journals around the world recently. IoT Analytics has shown in the recent study that a compound rate of 35% growth in the servitization or equipment as a service market is happening. And by 2025, they are expecting the market size of $131 billion in this area. The main drivers, of course, are the cheaper setup or more available technologies to go toward the full servitization equipment as a service kind of model of business. There's a huge pressure from commoditization and competition in the market that affects the traditional OEMs to think about other ways of creating the differentiation and commercial advantage. And of course, there is a customer demand moving from the CapEx form of doing the business to a more OpEx expenses way of doing the business, which means that they would like to spend as they get their outcomes of their processes. In a different study, Bain and Company also highlighted different ways that this journey toward equipment as a service can provide different kind of values to the vendors and also the customers. So looking in this breakdown of customer operating cost, comparing it with the traditional model of produce and sell the equipment than product or equipment as a service, there are different ways that you can do savings or even creating new revenue streams or making them recurrent to provide higher value both toward your customers and also toward your own business. So the expected potential revenue to the vendor between these two models can be increased by 100% according to this study. At the same time, in a study, McKinsey compares companies that are relying more on service business, mentioning them as more resilient companies because service business creates resilience for the business. In the terms of total return to shareholders index or performance, and compare the resilient companies doing a lot of big portion of their business out of the service business to SP 500 index, and also the non-resilience that are probably more traditional in the way of producing and selling products. And comparing that within the period of 10 years between 2007 to 2017, those resilient companies relying on services could provide a higher total return to shareholders even in the downturn that happened in 2008, and also recovering much better afterwards. A good example of that is the sales revenue from truck sales and service sales at Scania during the same period, looking into 2007 to 2011. So comparing the discrete product sales, it was hit greatly by the reduction of demand in the market in 2009, and it took almost 3 years for Scania to get back to the levels that they had in 2008. However, the sales revenue didn't really much impacted during 2009, and then just a year after they were back to the same numbers as 2008 and continuing and growing on that business. So these are very good examples of how moving toward more service business, outcome-based services, and eventually moving to full servitization model of business can help you to create resilience and also more higher levels of basically resilience in the revenue and profitability over the long period of time. Another study published by Kopperberg last year for aftermarket, it shows that only less than 20% out of the audience that they have done the study, less than 20% of the revenue in their business is coming from service side, while between 30 to 50% of the margin and profitability comes from the services. And this one is also showing where we're standing today with the service business and the great opportunity that exists for both the aftermarket service businesses and also the complete servitization model of business for OEMs and B2B companies. So knowing that, how should we get there, and how should we step into our journey toward the full equipment as a service way of doing the business? There are two dimensions that companies need to grow in those two dimensions. One is the technology transformation, which is today is the enabler for any new way of doing the providing the services, especially when you move toward outcome-based services, where you need to know how your products are used, in what kind of conditions, and what are the needs of those products at every point of time to provide the right service at the right time with the right product and services and people toward your customers. The other side is the business model and the service product that the design of that needs to be transformed. So it's not about selling the discrete product anymore. It's bundling the product with the outcomes that it can provide for the processes of your customers. Example of this can be like services that improves the availability of your products, for example, rental services, or services that can optimize the output or maximize the output or reducing the cost of the operations at your customer sites. So scaling in these two dimensions, you will create the maturity to also move to the basically ultimate stage in this journey, which is the complete equipment as a service offering, where basically you are promising the outcomes to the customer. You have a close relationship with the customer over the long lifetime of the contract, where your products are also used. You need to manage the experience that they have from working or basically having the business with you during this time, and your services would be as a means to make sure the promises are delivered properly. So having this journey in your basically horizon of your business, there are three main areas that you need to focus on and basically scale in those areas. One level is the strategy. Usually this journey takes 3 to 5 years to reach the point that you can really scale on equipment as a service model of the business. So you need to start with increasing or closing your relationship with your customers. The products need to become more connected and smart. You need to have new ways of creating the revenue and managing the monetizing the basically the business model in new ways. And finally, you get to the point that you can be scaled on the new business model. So each of these needs goals, timelines, deadlines, and KPIs to reach to. On the second level, you need to make sure you have the right processes, right organization, right people, and right alignment, all the way from very corporate and central perspective to the field and to the end customer perspective, to make sure that you can execute and reach these goals that you set on your strategy at the right time in a correct way. The third level, of course, is the technology, and moving towards servitization or outcome-based services without having the right technology is almost impossible. So we are on the verge of the fourth industrial revolution, and always during the previous revolutions we have seen in IT, in automation, in the past, looking back into like 300 years ago, product always stayed more or less the same, and it played the role of the discrete product all the time. This time, product is changing, and the way that it's changing is basically in a way that it becomes connected and smart. We can gather a lot of data from the product these days, and we need a lot of enablers to properly gather, analyze, and provide decision support implications back toward our customers or toward our own operations to enable us toward the full servitization or outcome-based services. So you will, as the OEM, do a lot of digital services in the future, and therefore, for that, you need to have a right enablement from the digital tools that exist in the market. So looking into the journey also, when we get away from a pure build and sell concept, which is just evolves around the product itself, toward the full basically product as a service, which is service and product combined to each other, and you provide the promises. There is a couple of steps that you can excel your maturity into those. One big step that you can improve your maturity and prepare your organization to go for full servitization business model is your aftermarket. Aftermarket is basically consists of your expertise as people that you have in your organization to provide services to your customers, and also the spare parts that basically with those you make sure your products are staying up and running at your customers. So let's look into that, and let's see what is the implication of pricing for aftermarket. Before I get into that, I would like to highlight the power of pricing in the business as a lever to improve the profitability. So compared to any other lever that you might have in the business and you might think about it, pricing has the highest impact on margin improvement. So although pricing is a topic that is always a matter of concern for many managers, and many managers are kind of scared to touch it, but if you do it in the right way, improve the pricing in the right way, it is the most fruitful tool to use for improving the profitability and health of your business compared to the cost of goods sold if you want to reduce it, or for example the volume, especially if the volume is gained by reducing the prices or giving discounts. But what kind of companies can gain or benefit most from this lever, this pricing? Companies can do that are having high level of pricing power. And if I want to make it in a simple terms, pricing power means that how much you can increase your prices without scaring that many of your users or customers will stop doing the business with you. So if you have the right pricing, logical pricing, fit to the value perception of the customer, and you can easily defend and explain your pricing logics and pricing methodology and strategy, you can believe that you have good or high pricing power. Considering this, a positioning of your brand and or the value perception and the price levels that you want to have in the market is a strategic decision. So companies are based on where they see the market potential and what kind of requirements and needs that they want to fulfill for the customer. They decide on what kind of positioning that they want to have. You can think about luxury products, you can premium products, or low-end products with lower price levels. The important thing is that you need to always be on the equivalent line between the value perception and the price. So if you move higher than the value line, equivalent line, then you will perceive overpriced compared to the value that you're providing. And if you go downwards, you will be underpriced and you will basically leave the profitability or margin on the table. For the same reason, some companies, like in automotive, Volkswagen is a good example of that. They define different brands to approach different segments or different positionings within the market to capture the volume and profitability of all of those possible positionings that they can gain in the market. Still, the important thing is that each of these brands, the value that they are offering and the price that they are demanding should be in line with the equivalent line between the value perception by the customer and the price that they are paying. When we look at the aftermarket or spare parts, discrete spare parts, this is usually what we see. So you might have a very good positioning for your brand as a whole, but when looking into your spare parts, especially if you have a very traditional way of looking at discrete spare parts, part by part, and using the cost-based pricing strategies, you will see this kind of scattered situation with your pricing against the profitability perceived value by the customers. So the thing is that for those parts that you are overpriced, probably you get a lot of feedback or complaints from the market, and probably you will fix them over the time, get closer to the equivalent line. But for those that are basically underpriced, you always leave the margin on the table because no one will give you any feedback. So with the right pricing and high quality pricing, you basically move toward this situation that all of your prices are aligned around the perception of the value by the customer and also the willingness to pay that they have. I won't spend too much time on spare part pricing, but to reach that kind of quality pricing levels and moving towards more value-based pricing and market-based pricing, you need to put your assortments into context. Homogeneous groups of products, looking into the value drivers to the eyes of the customer, they can be very different from captivity standpoint of the products. So the more competitive they are, then you need to look at external sources of data like competitor prices or market feedback. And then based on that, create value-based or value-driven price logics, which are also easy to explain and defend toward the customer. Only by doing this, companies, as we experienced in the past decade, 5 to 15% gross profit improvement is what you can expect to gain. But this is just looking into spare parts. There are three main things remaining, or three main trends remaining, that still call for diversification or differentiation of your value offering by moving towards services. Commoditization that is happening for products, retailification, and sustainability concerns. So commoditization is a pressure that you feel by the competitors, both for your products, spare parts, and maybe very standard services. Retailification is a kind of a behavior that is happening also in the B2B, where clients would like to have products fast, in the right time, at the right place. And there's a huge and increasing transparency about pricing, logistic channels, and so on the internet, which is making it harder and harder to differentiate your value offering when it comes to pricing for discrete products. By moving toward value-based, outcome-based services, or moving toward complete servitization, you can, by changing the whole game and including your spare parts portfolio into your service portfolio or service contract, you can avoid commoditization trends or retailification trends, because you are the one who is responsible for these, and customer doesn't really look into those areas for sourcing their spare parts one by one from different options that they might have in the market. On the sustainability topic, as you know, we have put our environment into a lot of pressure by urge for maximizing the production, exploiting the resources, and also the waste that we are creating. So moving toward outcome-based services, we have more motivation towards creating more resilient and robust products, easier to retrofit and service products, and probably even lower need for high production volumes, also reducing the waste as a whole. So we can hope that it would affect the environment in the right way. So having these three in mind, on the way moving toward this and creating this commercial advantage, avoiding the commoditization and the retailification trends that I mentioned, you need to do the transformation in three areas: the value creation, value delivery, and value capture. On the value creation side, basically, you revisit how you're creating the value. It's not only the product anymore. You need to design your services and product together. You need to have a right strategy to go to the market with this. You need to do a lot of change management internally and externally, and have the right business model for monetizing this through your contracts. When it comes to delivery, as I mentioned, you're getting closer and closer to your customers. You will be present on digital channels much more than before. You need to make sure that you can deliver the promise of off-site and on-site properly with the right resourcing to deliver the SLA and the KPIs that you're promising in your service contracts. And finally, when it comes to capturing, you need to make sure that you have long-lasting customers. They renew their contracts, You have value-based pricing for your outcome-based contracts to realize the higher margins and sustainable improvement in your revenues and profitability. At the same time, as I mentioned, a complete change management about KPIs and how the Salesforce should change their approach in sales of services and promises rather than the pure product should happen at the same time. So looking into the service contract types, again, and looking into like perceived value and willingness to pay, among the different service promises that you can provide, you can create higher willingness to pay when you are reallocating more risk toward yourself and reducing the risk for your customer. Also, you can increase that willingness to pay by providing tangible results as a business case from a financial perspective, risk perspective, or output perspective. And also, as much as you customize your service offering around the processes of your customers, then you can expect that they would be more willing to pay for higher prices and, of course, higher profitability for you eventually. So getting away from more standardized services that are very prone to commoditization and competition toward more like completely outsourced operations where you are taking care of all the responsibility, delivering your promises and taking the risk, would be a huge difference in the pricing methodology and also willingness to pay from the customer perspective. So having that in mind, let's look at what kind of service categories we can basically identify and what is the low versus high maturity service offerings in this kind of category. So services can be divided into 4 dimensions. Input driven and output driven. That's basically the promise that you're providing. Input driven is basically looking into your own input from the customer when they need help, and you provide basically the help and resources to keep them up and running and basically helping them to work with their processes and accomplish their processes. The outcome-driven services are those that are basically focusing on the outcome that is coming. The promise is to maximize the output, reducing the risk or reducing the cost, looking into the basically the processes that they want to deploy. Also, at the same time, your services can be towards your own equipment or towards the process of the customer. So when it comes to your own equipment, it means that you provide services that basically provide the resources and the maintenance to make sure they're up and running. But when it comes to the process of your customer, you look at their process also and try to optimize it in a way that can best work with your equipment. So looking into this, the most standard type of services are equipment lifecycle services. They're usually considered as a must-have services, and they are basically incorporating all the services, including delivery, installation, startup, repair, and maintenance and inspection of the product, making sure that the product is properly delivered, it is functioning, and it's continued to be functioning for the customer. The other service, which is equipment-oriented or supplier-oriented, is the equipment efficiency services. Here, you basically move away from input way of doing the business, become more preventive in the way that you're providing the services to the equipment, with the promise of maximizing, for example, the uptime. So you might use technologies to do remote monitoring. You can provide the inputs about the health of the equipment to your customer. You can create like revenue models by providing the subscription business, basically access for customers to see if their equipments are healthy and if they need to have maintenance in the coming time. So since you're a little bit taking the risk here, of course, the willingness to pay will be increased by these kind of services as you're guaranteeing the uptime, for example. The other services that it is input driven, but it is focusing on the optimization of the process on the customer side are consulting, audit, or training and diagnostic services. So in this way, you're providing the knowledge toward the customer, how they can or they should improve their efficiency of the processes to increase the output. However, you're not doing the modifications. It's still the responsibility of the customer to perform those and basically get the benefits. And the fourth dimension or fourth type of service contract is when you fully take over or you get the outsource operation of the services. And in this way, you basically take the full responsibility for the outcomes, making sure that the processes are up and running and whatever promises that comes with that. The example of those can be like outsourced fleet management for construction companies. You make sure that the availability is there when the need is basically coming up and there is no interruption in the construction processes due to lack of machinery or breakdown of the machinery. So looking at in all of these different categories of services, reducing risk, increasing availability or throughput and output, and also cost saving or improving the cost levels are the typical benefits that you're providing to the customers. So having this in place, you can define a total potential value out of different basically values that you're providing with your services. However, usually there are fewer of these values that are tangible to the customer. You can really get to the kind of agreement with the customer that this is the financial or output result of your services toward their processes. This value that you can identify it and measure it together with the customer is considered as the actual value that is realized from your services. And there is a portion of this that you can capture it as your benefit or revenue by your pricing, service pricing. And there is another part of that that goes to other partners or parties that help you to provide these services. Sometimes you do co-creation of the services or co-delivery of the services. So in order to maximize or improve this captured value as part of the complete actual value, there are different factors that can play or you need to think about them to improve that and maximize it. So one thing is the communication and the measurement of the business case, the value proposition, and really in monetary terms, what you can basically measure and present as the value of the services. The other one is the maturity of the service offering itself, the four dimensions that we mentioned. You can stay on the very standard kind of service contracts, or you can go to like a full extent of outsourced services. And finally, it's about the market alternatives. The more you understand that kind of service contracts, then you're more prone to the competition and other alternatives that can affect your relationship with your customers. And the more you go to the other end with outsourced services, of course, there would be less number of competitors. Considering these, again, there are two revenue models that you can invest on those. Input-based, which is basically about cost-based kind of pricing, time and material, or putting it into a fixed fee kind of contract. And also output-based, which is more value-based, and you tie your income and value capturing to the value captured by the customer itself. So looking into these two kind of pricing models, on the bottom up or cost-based pricing, you basically start from the resources that you provide to the services, spare part and labor. So here is really important that you have proper excellence in your pricing for spare parts and labor, because big part of your margins are driven by the margins that you are basically applying for your labor and spare parts. On top of that, if you can still quantify the risk, the availability, and or the improvement of the operating costs, you can of course add those value adds or capture more margins on top of the resources that you're providing for the service. And all of those create your service contract prices. On the other hand, for the value-based or top-down approach pricing, you start with the total potential customer value that you're offering. And then, as I said, you need to sit together with the customer, understand what they are really perceiving as the outcome of your services, and agree on a quantified value that you can measure over the time together with them. And then your price would be basically the captured value for your business out of that quantified value together with them. So looking into the 4 dimensions again, as you're moving toward output-based kind of contracts, then you can move toward more value-based type of pricing. While when you're basically investing into input kind of business contracts, there are less chances of moving to full value-based kind of pricing models, and you are prone to other alternatives and competition also in the market more than the other 2 options on the output-based kind of contracts. So looking into the promise and content of the service, that's one driver or one component of the value that service can create in the eyes of the customer. The other component is the size of the equipment fleet, the machinery fleet, or installed base. So when the size becomes bigger, of course, the investment that goes into this fleet becomes higher, and the value that you can provide with any of types of the promises or contracts that you can provide to the customer increases proportionally. So putting these 2 components into a pricing framework, then you can put your pricing into a logic and structure. As you basically increase the content and the size of the fleet, you can expect that the willingness to pay would be higher by the customer. So having this in place, how can we monetize these pricing models? I have 4 examples of monetization models for managing the revenue. Of course, there can be other models that you can reach as separate model or as a combination of these models. In practice, to reduce the risk like connected to each of these kind of models, companies tend to mix the terms and conditions of each of these. But one of these models would be the dominant model to invest on and base the whole contract around it. So time-based model is, or considered as an unlimited subscription, is basically a fixed fee that customer pays you for having the right to access or using the equipment. And that can be paid per month or year or whatever terms that you are deciding together. The benefit that it has, or the type of kind of revenue that it has, is a predictable fixed revenue and cost levels for the customer and for you as a supplier, the revenue. And it provides you a very robust picture of, okay, what can you expect for your business in the coming years and month. It is applicable for rental businesses, availability guaranteed services, and it's basically a simple time-based fixed contract, fixed fee contract over the defined period of time. The other model is usage-based, and basically it's a dynamic or variable payment connected to the actual usage of the equipment and making sure that the outcome is achieved. So in this way, customers, without basically investing as a capex when it comes to servitized model of business, they make sure that they will, or they have the peace of mind that they will pay you as they use the equipment and they capture the benefit that they are supposed to get from it. And then part of that captured value benefit would be the price that they need to pay for their services. So it is very much applicable for equipment as a service type of contracts, and also it can be used pretty much into the outcome-based service contracts. And the payment can be done per hours of usage or kilometer or tons moved, and whatever that can be relevant for the type of equipment or the business. Financial-based kind of the business model or revenue model is maybe more applicable for process industry, where you have financial measurements directly connected to the amount of output of the process. For example, delivering natural gas within the pipes of a company. So the gas price is pretty known in the market, and per cubic meter, for example, you can easily measure what is the outcome or financial outcome of the processes that are happening. And again, part of that, making sure that this process is up and running would be the price for the service for the supplier. The other model is frequency-based, and that's for maybe more for discrete cycles of operations happening, maybe more into like a discrete product manufacturers. So in robotics, in automotive production lines, a cycle can be, for example, a painted body in the paint shop part of the production line, or moving products in a warehouse through by robots from a delivery standpoint to the storage standpoint, for example. And for each of these cycles, the supplier can demand a fixed fee as they help having these operations up and running. So having this business model, this pricing models and revenue models in place, there is a huge implication for change for the organization, how you're looking at your services and how you are preparing for scaling with the new business model. First thing that you can do in your business to grow in service business is to put everything into context and structure. The very initial step is to create an alignment in the organization. Usually OEM manufacturing companies are very global companies, and different sales companies, different actors and different channels might deliver same services in different way, or they might not have the full visibility of the available services in their company. So putting it into a structure, making that alignment, providing or creating the consensus about value proposition of different services and what is the expected pricing approach for these services can help for creating more consistency in revenue generation from different kind of services that you have. The goal should be here that from a global or a corporate standpoint, you create this harmonization and make sure that everyone has the same approach to value creation and value delivery, and also pricing of the different services. On the local side, on the sales side, of course, you need to leave proper flexibility and freedom for the salespeople to adapt the conditions, the pricing, and the promises toward the local countries that they are providing these contracts to their customers. Local competition, looking into the local legal constraints, customer needs in different places, and cost and price levels accepted in different places are just an example of those criteria that can dramatically affect what you can demand for the price for your services in different places. The other topic which is very important in this journey for the change is the management of KPI. So as you move toward more outcome-based, customer-driven processes or service offerings, you need to have new KPIs that are reflecting those toward your customers, like mean time between failures, improved customer output, safety, response time, just an example of those. At the same time, you need to revisit the KPIs that you are defining internally toward your sales organizations, for example, moving it away from product sales mix and margins of volumes to more like a margin over time for the specific service contract, or retention rate of the customers, how much they're coming back and renew their service contracts after they're expiring. And this kind of KPIs reflecting the service business growth for your business. Having these right KPIs in place, they are also helping you in operations and performance measurement. So for different contracts, of course, you need to make sure that your actual expenditure, the resources that you provide for unexpected breakdowns, for example, are not exceeding a minimum level that basically reduce your minimum margins. So that there should be a kind of alerting system in your performance management operations to make sure that you get alerted at the right time and take the corrective action to improve that situation in the service contract. Maybe you need to also revisit your KPIs, as the whole journey is a learning journey when it comes to moving toward more outcome-based service contracts. So having this said, there are lots of other topics that you need to consider when it comes to change management and moving away from discrete manufacturing production and sales kind of mindset towards the service mindset and servitization mindset. But what I would try to highlight here in this webinar was the very important topics that are usually come into as a limitation or challenges for companies to move toward the full servitization and providing outcome-based services. At Avrogan, we have different kind of offerings for helping you in different steps in this journey with the people that we have at Avrogan and also the partner network that we have. So we can start with assessment and the maturity study, creating the roadmap for the strategy, the milestones that you might want to consider, doing different kind of analytics, data analytics, and also market analytics, creating the go-to-market strategy and plan and timeline, setting up the right operations, helping you finding the right partners for investment and funding for equipment as a service, for example, having the right execution plan from the operational perspective, KPIs, and the whole organization, and also helping you to find the right technology, acquiring the right technology on the way that you're developing your business toward more outcome-based kind of service contracts. I hope this webinar and the material has been fruitful to you. We are very welcoming any further contacts and questions from you. I think here we have now some time for question and answer from the participants.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Ahmad. What a great presentation, and I'm sure our attendees feel the same way. Really valuable content. So we've seen several questions already come through. So any of the attendees that would like to submit any additional questions, this is the time to do so. And let's kick it off with the first question. How can we use the pricing leverage for improving our profitability when we don't have pricing power?
Well, as I mentioned, the pricing power comes with improving the pricing logic and the quality of your pricing. And as I mentioned, quality of pricing improves when, or high quality pricing is a structured price that you can defend and explain it properly. If you don't have it in place, you need to invest on that. I guess probably you're doing a lot of cost-based pricing today, and that may be a very common approach in the manufacturing industry. So moving away from that and moving towards like more value-based or market-driven kind of approach helps you to be able to easier explain your pricing and defend your pricing, reducing first the unnecessary discounting toward your customers, because you always have the pressure from the customer for getting discounts and better prices. But the more you can resist that and improve that bottom line or compliance toward your list prices, then you have a better situation with the pricing power. And over the time, you can improve that as you excel in the value-based kind of pricing models. And when you're there, you have the pricing power to properly leverage it as you wish, basically. So you need to do the investment to create the pricing quality first before you basically be able to leverage your pricing power.
Great, thank you. And another question. Do you think we can use service offerings as a mean to control the cross-border risk for our spare part business also?
I can say yes, because what you do with service offering, especially when you bundle the products as part of the service promise. So you, for example, say that you promise uptime, and for this uptime, you need to make sure you have the right spare parts in place. at the right time when you kind of think that the product might break down or it needs the service. So having that, moving away the topic of selling and buying spare parts, you can also expect that you can avoid the cross-border business. Of course, cross-border business can be prevented or managed by improving the prices in different markets. That has been something that we have done in the past. So kind of a global harmonization of pricing can also pretty much reduce it or manage it in a right way. But moving toward outcome-based services can be helpful in the sense that you don't sell the spare parts anymore. You sell that already as part of your service contract.
Great, thank you. Another really good question. Can we apply the same pricing methodologies that you explained for both B2C and B2B markets? What's the difference between the two, if that's possible?
Well, one difference is that in B2C, the final customer consumer is individual customers that we consider them as a B2C consumers. And the thing is that in B2B, with the outcome-based services, we also help our clients to optimize their processes. So they have another layer of customers that they are providing their outputs or services towards them. And we are helping a process here. For B2C, we provide the service to the end user. And then there would be some differences in the nature of the service that we're providing. But still, there are outcome-based or servitized kind of business models that are being experimented by B2C manufacturers like Philips or Electrolux, for example. They're doing these kind of new business models, for example, or for example, Husqvarna providing lawn mowers and getting paid for like a square meter of grass that is long. So there are some differences in the nature of the service, but still is pretty much the concept can be applied.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see, another question. What is your suggestion to protect ourselves with regard to usage service contracts when the usage or consumption declines? Like the current situation for Rolls-Royce, power by the hour model that have dramatically decreased Rolls-Royce revenue.
Yes. Well, if we go back to the different monetization models, as I mentioned, there are risks with each of them. For example, for subscription, you might have overusage, or for this usage per pay-per-use kind of model, you might have these situations that the customer stop using the product, or for any reason, like your example, there is no need for the product. So then you can combine or risk-proof the contracts by combining these kind of approaches. And for example, in this case, you can define a minimum fixed range for as a kind of subscription to having this kind of business contract or service contract, and then on top of that, then the usage model can come in. But as I mentioned, one of the models would be more or less the dominant model when it comes to the contract itself. But then to consider or reduce or manage the risk for the vendor, also you can combine the terms and conditions.
Great. Let's see. One last question before we wrap it up. I know we have a few minutes left. Is there any specific method to define the actual value of a service contract in order to use that for defining the value that can be captured by the service provider?
Well, first of all, moving toward outcome-based service contracts incorporates a lot of learning for the suppliers or the vendors. What is important is the right presentation and communication of the value that you are co-creating with the customers. So co-creation is a very critical thing here. It's completely different mindset than produce and sell and maintain, than basically creating the value offering based on the metrics that the customer would prefer for their processes. And if you can manage to do that, do the co-creation, do the right presentation of tangible outcomes of your services, then you shouldn't be that much worried about the basically the capturing part, because when the customers see the value, then they can comply with the price and the kickback basically as a price of the service toward the vendor.
Great. Thank you so much, Ahmed. It looks like that is all of the questions we have for now. So I would like to wrap things up. Ahmed, what's the best way to reach out to you if anyone wants to engage or further discuss the topic that you just went over?
Absolutely. Well, I have my contact information on this presentation. I guess you will share this presentation, Matthew, with all the participants. So
Absolutely.
everyone is very welcome to continue the conversation through these channels.
Great. Thanks so much, Matt. We really look forward to having you again in the future. And thank you and Evergrande for a great presentation. Anyone would like to further discussion, as he said, please reach out to him or us at PriceFX to engage in any further communication. Thank you for everyone attending. Stay healthy, stay safe, and thank you again, Hamad. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, have a good day. Thank you.